Well, it's a public holiday right here in Lagos, Nigeria. We know the stock market is closed, but other markets are still open at this time. Hope inflation has not dented your enjoyment too much. First, let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. We see global markets are open for trade today. The oil market is open, but we're seeing prices slipping in early Asian trade. This morning, $82.33 a barrel. That's what we have for Brent, 0.40% down. WTI crude, $77.76 a barrel, also down 0.4%. Global benchmark prices still were down about 29 cents in the global market today, and we're expecting, a slew of data coming out from China that's going to give us a sense of where the China economy, if it's still resilient at this time, and definitely we know how that impacts the oil market. Let's get a check on the FX market. We see the close for Friday. That was a bearish close that we had on Friday, 0.44%. That's for NFM, 1,482 naira to the dollar. That was a close from a previous 1,476 naira. For NAFEX, 1,479 naira from 1,471. That's a close for Friday, 0.57% down. And analysts are expecting some kind of stability also this week right here. But talking about stability, prices, Nigeria's headline inflation rate is still climbing higher despite continued attention from the monetary side of things. Headline inflation, 33.95% from 33.69% in the previous month. We see food inflation still inching up, but we can see the rate of rise is still slower. But at the end of the day, if you go to the markets, it feels much higher than this. Core inflation, 27.40%. Urban inflation, where we are right now, 36.34%, and rural inflation, that rose by 31.45% from 31.82%. So it's another high right there for the inflation numbers. All right, to other stories now. We see 2024 African Export-Import Bank meeting as that came to a close earlier. One resounding story from the meeting is that of Dangote Refinery. The founder and chairman of Dangote Group, Mr. Aliko Dangote, shared difficulties he faced on his path to success after borrowing a total of $5.5 billion towards the project. He said his journey to building the refinery has revealed that the West is not totally in support of industrializing Africa. Take a listen.
There is quite a pushback. First of all, you have heard what Jeffrey Sachs said. What he said, is that I don't believe if the West want us to progress in terms of industrialization. Industrialization is something that is the basic that we need. We need to produce what we consume. Yeah. But I don't think if there's any support coming from the West. As a matter of fact, during the COVID period, some of the international banks really were looking forward to making sure that they push us into default of our loans so that the project will just be dead. And that didn't happen with the help of banks like Afrexim Bank.
That was Mr. Dangote there giving us a brief summary of his getting to bring out that refinery. Definitely quite a challenging story right there. But talking about the numbers right now, let's drill down on those inflation numbers for May. Joining us now is Dr. Ifeanyi Jeremiah Uba. He's head investment research, Commercial Partners Limited, joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so we see the numbers is another new high, and the last numbers we got, we were quite happy about the rate of rise was actually slowing. But looking at the numbers this time, do you see any bright spots?
Oh yes, we actually got some mixed data from the MBS data in the inflation figures in May. While we saw year-on-year numbers inch up higher, we saw month-on-month reduced slightly, but the core inflation and headline inflation are still in levels that are very uncomfortable for me to say we should start throwing a merry-go-round. Inflation is something that affects everybody from the rich to the poor. But when we drill down to the numbers, we see that it is the most essential services that are having the highest hike compared to last year.
Right, and we did get a check on the markets over the weekend. We checked the prices of RAM. We checked the prices of normal condiments that we normally buy to celebrate this season, and the prices are really, really high at this time. Talk to me about how much you think the average consumer can take right now in Nigeria.
Well, it's definitely something to be upset about. Going to the shopping mall or even going to the canteen to buy food, we see inflation everywhere. And we see even producers or sellers coming up with tactics like shrinkflation in order to deal with the rising prices, because there's a limit you can transfer to your consumer, right? Now, although we see prices inch up when we compare like this festival to last year's festival, on a month-to-month basis, prices don't just jump up. It has been going slowly. So when we compare this month to last month, we probably see prices probably inch down. So maybe a tactic to have done is to have bought maybe our condiments or around 3 months earlier, factoring the cost of feeding.
Right, and now that we see the holidays be over by tomorrow, do you think prices will come back down to reality, at some point?
Well, it's very difficult to tell you the trajectory of inflation in Nigeria because there is expectation of some shocks. We have the labor contesting the government in terms of minimum wage increase, and we definitely know that has some inflationary tendencies. And aside from that, we have energy cost implication, because immediately there are some oil shocks. We also understand that there's a substantial amount of our economy that depends on energy. So it's also going to aggravate the inflationary situation. On one hand, we see the CBN trying to reduce inflation by promoting contractionary policies and pushing the interest rates up. But there's a limit to this, particularly when we have the exchange rate moving away from us.
Right, and talking about the inflation numbers still rising, we see federal government and Labour still trying to find that sweet spot when it comes to a national minimum wage. Where do you think inflation will be when both parties finally agree?
To be honest, it's going to be difficult to project. If history is one to tell us, during the Obasanjo regime, when we saw a jump in minimum wage, we also saw a very high increase in inflation. So if we get an inflation, if we get a minimum wage that is far above what we have now, let's say 300%, 200% increase, we are definitely going to see inflation follow that suit, as what we are facing now is cost push inflation, not necessarily demand. But immediately we have an increase in minimum wage, there will be an aggravated demand push inflation, because more money will be chasing fewer goods. The woman selling beans will have more money, and people will be buying and ready to increase price to try and cut the line. So we have this ripple effect all over the economy, and we are definitely going to see the inflation figures down.
And how do you think this is going to influence what the MPC does, at the next meeting? You did mention that they're running out of wiggle room when it comes to raising interest rates.
So, the interest rate comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of borrowing, and it comes at the cost to businesses, and increasing the interest rates to a point just aggravates the misery in the economy. So the Apex Bank governor has a lot to think about and factor in. But knowing that the real runaway cow in the room is inflation, and doing everything to tame it in collaboration with fiscal policy by now will be the next approach for a formidable outcome.
I guess this season we'll call it the runaway ram. At this point, thank you so much. It was great having you, Dr. Ifeanyi Jeremiah Uba. He's the head investment research commercial partners limited. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll find out how organizations are navigating all of these challenges as it impacts talent and the labor force at this time. That's our next conversation. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, with inflation rising further, we're seeing more strain on organizations and talent at this time as employees leave organizations for better opportunities. It puts production under risk for most companies. Let's see how organizations and talents can navigate all of this. Joining us now for this conversation is Fred Okobi, Head Business Intelligence and Research at Phillips Consulting Limited. And we also have Tracy Afolabi Johnson, Senior Consultant, People Transformation Unit at PCL, both right here in the studio. Great to have you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
to
yeah, so definitely the inflation numbers, keep rising at this time. I know this is putting a strain on the worker at this time, and even on, on the organizations too. So talk to me about the Jackpot syndrome right now. We know this is really impacting, organizations that used to have like 20 people in a department now have about 5. Doing the same job. So talk to me about how this is impacted. I'll start with you.
Yeah, so the thing with the Jackpot syndrome is, or we'll call this relocation at this time, the in-season relocation has impacted, human capital. And so what that does is it sort of impacts output, right? You do not have the same number of people doing the same, jobs, and in terms of quality, you start to ask yourself how, what is input like? Right? How businesses starting to think, how do you keep the best hands? How do you manage, people who remain, and how do you make them satisfied? Right. So the goal of the report itself was to, figure out attrition. Right? How do you manage people who are your best resources, right? And how do you keep them going so that you don't keep losing people and then having to train new ones, really? Right,
because it is a challenge, bringing in new people and having to train them at this time. But break the report down for me now, because we've seen situations where 10 people were running the show at some point, then we see maybe 5 leave and 5 have to carry on the work of the other. So how do you keep those ones that stay? How do you keep them happy? Talk to me about how this plays out in your report.
Okay, so really for now, it's really beyond money for employees. People understand the current state of the economy in Nigeria, and they know that it's affecting businesses. So employees are looking for things beyond money because they have that understanding. So what are the other ways that we can keep employees motivated? How can we keep them happy? How can we keep them engaged? And that's where the non-financial reward package comes in. While we're developing this report, we wanted to get opinions of employees on what their companies are currently doing, to offer them, to keep them retained and happy within the business. We also wanted to get the perspective of the employers. And so we carried out this and we asked them those questions. And from the outcome of the survey, very few organizations currently are offering their employees non-financial reward packages. And we have few of them also, they mentioned that it's being done fairly and also done very poorly. We also asked employers the same question. What are you doing to attract and keep your employees? We asked employees the same questions, and the same thing, also occurred. And during the session that we had 2 weeks ago at Whitbaker, one of the CEO of First Primos, he mentioned that also that CEOs, business owners are really looking for how to keep their business profitable, achieve growth and profitability in their business. And they're just open to any initiatives at all that will keep their employees happy. We also asked the employees, what are the things that we can do that will keep you happy? And they were not related to cost at all. We had things around work-life balance, recognition programs, remote work, career development opportunities. These are things that will keep employees retained and happy within the business.
Yeah,
so we spoke a lot about this in the report.
And with keeping employees happy at this time, you also need to keep the organization happy and profitable going forward. So talk to me about how difficult it is for organizations at this time to actually make the disposable income is disposed, at this time. Talk to me about that.
So the title of the report really is finding a balance between the economic challenge and your talent management strategy, right? So we're looking at both ends. We're looking at the employees and we're also looking at, the employers. And so what we found out really is that, employers in this case right now are managing, their finances, right? They're being smart with it. They're managing finances. They're not just throwing, away, salaries, but what they're doing is they're increasing flexibility. And so today you would notice that there are a lot more commonalities. We know that, COVID has changed the way we work, right? So you see a lot of people working from home. You see a lot of, flexible relationships between, employers and their employees. We know how the cost of living crisis has impacted everything. With that, with transportation being a huge chunk, right? And so what that does is you have a lot of people who can now, work from home, make sure, they are not having to be at the office at every time, and just to make sure that, look, operations, financially are safeguarding their businesses, or businesses are safeguarding their operations while, keeping their employees happy.
Yeah, I did talk about the first mover, advantage in the market. Break that down for us.
Can I pick that? All right.
Yeah, fine. Why not?
So what that means really is that, some businesses are getting it right. Right. So there are businesses who I'll give PCL, Philips Consulting Limited, as an example. Philips Consulting Limited has been working from home since COVID, right? And so what that means is, as the economy has been changing, right? We're feeling the impact, right? But we're not having to feel the impact as, compared to people who will work, who go to office every day, right? And then when you look at also non-financial reward, Philips Consulting, they go through a lot of trainings, right? Every quarter we have, myself and my colleagues go through a lot of, quarterly trainings. So, businesses are changing the narrative. I won't name names, but I know about firms who, yes, I will give this example. This is a financial reward, right? But they are adjusting salaries to not directly match inflation, but to let their employees know that, look, we understand that things are going on, and it is impacting how much you earn monthly. And so what they do is that they adjust salaries slightly every month. So what does that do for the employee? They're excited. They want to be, a part of this business long term, or however the case may be. So what that means is, so what first mover advantage means is, businesses have to step away from that top-down approach, where you and your stakeholders just agree to, what employees will do, and then give them that, okay, this is the route we should follow. A lot of times you have to figure out, okay, what do they really want, and that is where Tracy at People Transform, she's a People Transformation Specialist. So what she does, what PT will do for you is, find that peculiarity between your industry and then the nuances of, what your employees want.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Tracy, there's also the barcode for the report. Definitely, I'm sure they would like to know, how it actually works, with the barcode and how you can actually download that report.
Okay, so I think you can go to LinkedIn. We have it on LinkedIn. We have the link there. So just scan it. Once you scan it, you get the link, and then you can click on it and you can download the report.
Also right there on our screen, right now you can also scan the code, and you also get the report, every detail right there. And I'm sure it wasn't easy, putting that report together.
But an interesting time.
But break it down for me. I'm sure you found some really interesting, unusual details, when you were putting that together. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so that's why we call it non-financial reward packages. So we have the idea that people are looking for money. Again, like I mentioned earlier, people understand where we are right now, and the generation of the workforce that we have today, they are looking beyond money. They want a place that can offer them career development opportunity, a place they can grow in their career, a place that doesn't stifle their creativity, a place that promotes flexibility. That's what the workforce is looking for right now, and that's why forward-thinking organizations are going to create policies and processes around that. Outcomes of this survey, most of the responses for what would keep them in a business and keep them engaged the highest was learning and development opportunities, because they want to grow in in that business. There has to be an alignment between the business goals and their personal goals. They mentioned flexible work also. A place where you can come in at will and close from work at will, a place that you can work remotely or go on some days, and that is even connected to productivity. It helps the business productivity. It helps you think of other ways that you can measure business productivity. This is what the people are looking for today, and this is what we captured in the report. So businesses can look at that report and look for other creative ways that they can keep their employees engaged and ensure that their business is productive outside money.
And Fred, definitely we know when organizations are trying to save money, they're going to try and shave off some of the labor force working for them at that time. But talk to me about, as an employee, how to keep your position, to make sure you're not one of those that has to be cut off.
It's simply about finding ways to be better, right? Taking on greater responsibilities within the firm. You have to step out from, okay, this is my role. You have to step out from that narrow scope of, okay, this is my role and this is what I should do, right? You have to start thinking beyond that. So how are my decisions, how are my responsibilities impacting the greater business as a whole, right? So with that thinking, yes, the business will understand, look, you're not just an employee, you have a buy-in into whatever the business is trying to achieve.
Right, and Tracy, still looking at the whole Jackpot syndrome, I'm sure there are some bright spots, because we've heard some people talk about, you leave the country, you go and get some good opportunities, but you still come back here and do some great things. Is that what you're seeing?
I'll give an example. Someone in the banking sector that we interviewed when we were developing the report, he mentioned, oh yes, people want to jackpot, but the grass is not actually greener on that side. It's not so easy as people make it seem. For him, he's enjoying where he works here. He praised his organization, they are doing things to keep them productive. So he said he would rather focus his energy on achieving his goals there while looking for side hustles, other ways to generate revenue. So really within Nigeria, people are thinking of survival strategies, thinking of other things that they can do outside their 9 to 5. That's why this flexible work arrangement comes in. As long as I can give in my best to this business because I'm working within my time, I can do other things to generate revenue, and I'm still happy within everything that is happening in the confines of the country.
Now, how do you balance that without getting distracted, from your main work?
Oh, it's simple. KPIs, strict KPIs. What am I supposed to do in my organization? What are the 3 things I'm supposed to achieve? Once I can get that going, I can also do other things, and that's where productivity comes in. Being able to measure your productivity.
Right, and definitely the minimum wage issue will definitely play into all of this. At this time, we're still seeing negotiations between the federal government and labor. At this time, do you think this is keeping workers on edge?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it would keep workers on edge because, again, it's a domino effect, really. If labor settles on how much they think, workers are worth, and then employees and then employers will start to ask themselves, okay, so how much do we pay people in the private sector? It is such a, it's a tango, right? I'm really hopeful that they reach a middle ground sometime in the coming weeks. But I guess I believe the goal of this report is trying to figure out, so what do you do when money isn't enough, right? How do you figure out how to satisfy your employees? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them excited, right? And so for the public sector and also the private sector, employees have to start thinking in this regard.
Right, and Tracy, definitely, talking about employees starting to think, in that level, we know organizations will have to step it up, at some point, to meet up with most of the obligations at this time. But break it down for me, where the headwinds are there, right now, but we all have to navigate it, somehow. So talk to me about how both the employees and the organizations can actually work together and not work against, each other in this situation.
I think it starts with business leaders, managers, HR leaders coming to understand what really matters to employees and then getting their buy-in, getting their opinion. Because there's one thing about shoving things down people's throats and then getting their buy-in into what you want to implement in the business. So just getting people, asking them what matters to you, what will keep you happy, what will keep you engaged, and then finding what the return on investment will be on the business, seeing how it's going to affect the business, and then implementing it, creating processes, policies around them, implementing and also assessing the impact it's having on the business and the employees. Once you do that consistently, continually, and keep on getting their feedback on it, you're going to achieve success.
And talking about getting constant, feedback at this time, definitely that takes a lot of commitment, from both sides. How do you keep that going?
So let me say that PCL will help you get great feedback at any point, in the business. So help you make, as a business, make these decisions. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's easy to do, right? I mean, it takes a lot of work. But feedback can be taken at any time. It can be taken when you want to make huge, massive strategic decisions, right? It can be taken when you also want to make decisions that will impact the livelihood of your employees, right? So you have to keep thinking about, when will feedback be necessary, and when do you think, look, I mean, by virtue of the industry or the sector that we work in, I mean, our employees will, value this. So it's a
right. And from what you've seen from this report, so far, I'd like to get your outlook for this Japa syndrome, in Nigeria right now, and for the organization, because we keep hearing about divestments, at this time, and definitely those are people, losing jobs. When you see divestments, what are you seeing in the future? Seeing the macroeconomic headwinds right now, both of them.
Okay, do you want to answer that?
I think that that's why we just have to keep on being innovative, thinking of new ways, new solutions, new ways of doing things. Both people, both the business leaders, and both the employees. That's why I mentioned that people are also looking for other ways they can generate revenue aside their 9 to 5. That's how employees are, adapting to everything that is happening, to the economic situation. And also for business leaders, they are thinking of other things that they can do in their business. What are other product lines that we can explore? What are other services that we can offer? So we have to keep on being innovative constantly for us to adopt everything that is happening in the economy.
All right, and I guess all hope is not lost at this point.
No, of course, all hope is not lost, yeah.
All right, I want to thank you both for coming on.
Yeah,
We're talking to Tracy Afolabi Johnson, Senior Consultant, People Transformation Unit at PCL, and Fred Okobi is a Head Business Intelligence and Research, Phillips Consulting Limited. It was great having you, you both, and let's hope we all don't jackpot something.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, so definitely it's still a public holiday, and the markets are still closed. They're going to be closed again tomorrow. We're going to get the first trading day for this week. That's coming on Wednesday with Cityway. The market actually reacts to that, but for Friday's close, 0.71% was quite a positive close last week. The FT Caps is at 56.52, chilling from the last close. And we look at the trading activity. For the market, we see it was just deals in the red, 33,709, lower compared to the previous one. But for volume, that was up 54.6% at 2.63 billion. So it was positive sentiment. That's how the markets, that's how investors left the markets last week. And definitely we'll see if that's going to play out, even though it's a holiday shortened week this week. That's it from me on Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams. It's back to the Sunrise Daily team.